Hello everyone, welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. It is time for another inbox review, and today we have a pretty new kit, the Kotare Messerschmitt Bf-109K-4. Now, like all the other Kotare kits I've done, the Spitfires, I know this is going to be an absolutely amazing kit. It's going to have that wingnut wings feel to it with the instructions, the plastic design, everything. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. Going on by the top of the box art, we have some absolutely amazing box art, just like wingnut wings. It looks like an actual painted canvas. You can even see the canvas lines in the artwork as well. So you can cut this out, frame it up, and put it on your wall as well. And then we have on the side, we have a nice little history about the 109K-4 right here. And then we have three different options. We have the Black 28 from Walter Kopp, IJG 26 of January of 1945. And then we have the Staub 3, JG 52, Adolf Borchers, April, May of 1945. And then we have the captured U.S. Army Air Force out of Salzburg, May of 1945. So again, some nice schemes as the option right here. Obviously, we have the special symbol not fully pictured on here because of restrictions in other countries. But we go off to the other side and we just have some other details from the other countries as well. And then we get into the box and it looks like it's absolutely perfectly packed. Nice plastic, some clear parts and everything. So I'm going to get everything set off to the side and we can start going through the instructions and plastic and decals and all that. So give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Alright, so we're starting off with the instruction. We have a nice thick booklet with some high quality paper as standard for Kotare. And on the front we have the history about the Bf-109 and the combat service, and then we have the specifications of the 109 right here, of the actual one, not the model. So we open it up and we have our decals, some warnings and all that, and then we have our sprue callouts. Now there's not a lot of sprues or parts to this kit. It's pretty much just the outer shell and the cockpit. They don't have an engine included because Kotare, they don't do engines in their kits. If you want to do an engine, I'm sure there's going to be, or there are aftermarket sets for this that'll really liven this one up if you want to do a diorama or something like that. But moving right along, we have our color callouts using Tamiya, SMS, Mr. Hobby Acrylic, Mr. Color Lacquer, Mr. Paint Lacquer, Atomic Atom Acrylic, and AK Gen 3 Acrylic. So really nice that they included all these different paint manufacturers. Usually with the other companies, you only get 2 or 3, and then you kind of have to do the guesswork on this, but really nice that they included, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different manufacturers for the paint colors. So really nice on that. Of course, if you are familiar with the channel, I use MRP or Mr. Paint Lacquer paints because I think, in my opinion, they are the best paints out there and the easiest to use. Alright, so now we're moving on to the cockpit with the decal guide for all of our instrument panel decals. It looks like they are all separate, so that's going to be really nice. And then you just come in afterwards with some UV resin and clear, add those to your dial faces, and then you get the nice glass work on that. And then we're moving right along, and we got decals and everything going on, and placards going onto the cockpit right here. Nice placement of how everything is supposed to go. And then we have a color call out of our cockpit as well. So it looks like we're going to be using a dark gray for the cockpit on this. Some nice color references on how everything is supposed to look. Alright, so now we're actually getting into the assembly of the cockpit. So we're going to have to go kind of back and forth on the instructions when it comes to painting. But again, really nice. Looks like it's going to be pretty simplified on the instructions. It doesn't look too complex. There's not too many parts thrown into one step, so that's nice. Then moving on, we have more cockpit assembly stuff going on right here. It has the actual description of the part that you are attaching, so you can actually learn something about this while you're building as well. Alright, and then moving on, we're getting the top frame onto our cockpit with our instrument panel, as you can see right here, and then we are getting the cockpit into the fuselage half. We do need to put in our propeller shaft at this point. Right here it says do not glue, so you'll be able to spin the propeller if you choose to do that. And then we do have an option for variant B, where we're going to need to drill out this hole right here to add in this part E18. Alright, moving right along. Now we're getting our fuselage halves together. Also, when you are assembling this, I don't know if they have a note on this yet, or if there is, but that center seam line that you're going to have down the middle, you're going to want to leave that, because when they're assembling the Messerschmitts or the 109s in the factory during World War II, it was assembled just like a model with two fuselage halves mated together, and then you would have this center seam line going down the back. So leaving that on there will actually make it accurate, so it helps with, you don't have to sand that anymore on that. So now we're just moving on to more fuselage bits with the nose, the belly pan, and all that going on there. And then we're working on our tailplane with our horizontal stabilizers and elevators, and our vertical stabilizer and our rudder going on. It doesn't look like it is going to be positionable, like you can have it off to left or right. So if you're going to want to do that, you're going to have to do some modifications on that. Then we're working on our tail wheel with our landing gear doors, and also the tail wheel right there. Now we're starting to work on our wings. We have a few other parts, our landing gear components going in there. And now we're working on our wings, getting our wings on. Our ailerons does look like those are positionable, and then we do have some slats in here for deployed or undeployed. And now attaching the wings onto the main fuselage. After that, we're working on some more radiator parts for the wings right here, and then we do have our landing flaps as well. That can be, it can be opened or closed right there. Alright, and again, moving on with more flaps right here, getting all that done, and some nice reference photos of the 109. Looks like this is the captured one, because those are American troops right there. And then moving on to our landing gear, it has a nice little shot of the angle of the landing gear on how that's supposed to be, and a nice little description of how everything is supposed to be with the moraine antenna right there. Alright, continue on with more landing gear, going right along. Then we're working on our propeller and our exhaust, adding in some more detail parts like our landing gear doors, some navigation lights and antenna. And now we're starting to work on the glass work for our cockpit right here with our gun sight going on there. We have some nice armor plating for our gun sight or our front windshield right here. And then we also have some rigging to add if you are going to have the canopy open right here, so that's a nice addition to that also. Again, moving on, then we have the option of having the closed canopy right here, and a little bit more rigging to add into there. Then we have an antenna add, some more rigging going on through an antenna, more rigging going on right through here. Then we have the fuel tank going on. I'm not sure what this piece is that they're talking about. Looks like it's something for the undercarriage. It has some nice pictures of the rivets going on to here as well. Now we're moving on to all the decal placements for our stencils and such going on right there. More stencils going on right here. And now we're getting to our actual color callouts. So again, Walter Kopp of January 1945. Nice paint scheme right there. Nice little blurb about the history of this aircraft. Moving on, we have the left and right profiles, top and bottom profiles right there. And then we have this one from Adolf Birchers, Staub 3, JG 52, April through May of 1945. Again, nice paint scheme there with the history about this aircraft. I'm debating between this one and this one. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet. We'll have to figure that out. I kind of like the purple, but I also kind of like the brown. We'll have to see. We'll make that determination when it comes time for that. Also, it comes down to the spinner. I like the spiral spinner. Then we have just kind of a half and half spinner right there. And then we have the captured U.S. Army Air Force version right here. Again, very nice on that. As you can see. And then some more detailed photos of everything right there. And continue on, more history about it, and a little write-up of the Kotare team right here. So great job on the instructions. Looks very nice. Moving on to our decals. Right here, let me get this bag opened up. Alright, so starting off with the decals. Decals, again, look absolutely amazing. Even with the stars and bars for the painted on, for the captured version, it looks like somebody actually just took a paintbrush and did a quick paint up of it. It doesn't look like a perfect roundel. As you can see here, the circles aren't perfect, which is absolutely amazing. And you even have the iron crosses on the backside of it looking like it's painted on as well by an actual brush, not an actual just standard letter print. So this is very nice on that. That's adding a little bit of a kind of a want to do one of these now. But again, the decals, they do kind of feel a little bit thick, especially on these, but I think that's because it's showing that it's painted over the number. If you look closely, you can see the number 4 underneath of that. So it might be thick because the rest of the decals, they also do feel a little bit thick, but not as thick as like these two right here, the ones that are painted on. And also with the stars and the US emblems, those also feel rather thick as well. While everything else, while it may be a little bit thick, they don't feel too bad. They should settle down really nice with that, with some microsol or something like that. So again, really nice attention to detail on the decals. I'm really loving how the artwork on the emblems and also the painted over portions for the U.S. Air Force captured version, U.S. Army Air Force captured version. That's really going to look nice on the kit. Alright, so now we're getting into plastic parts. Typical Kotare quality of plastic. Everything looks very nice. Some faint rivet detail on, I can't tell if that's rivet or stitching detail on these rudders right here, those, or elevators. Those look very nice. Our horizontal tail planes also look very nice with some nice bolt detail, recessed bolt detail right there. Our belly pan, again, nice and crisp on the molding, no issues with that. Our wheels also do look very nice. They do have some sidewall detail on there as well. Propellers, I'm not seeing any flash or anything like that. We do have two different versions of the instrument panel, it looks like, or it might be, okay, those are the same instrument panels. Not seeing any difference right now from what I can tell. And then our rudder right here, again, some nice work on that. And again, another option for our horizontal tailplane right there. We flip this over to the other side. No issues from what I can see. Everything, all the ejector pin marks and all that stuff are all pretty flush, but you're really not going to see any of this when it's all together. Alright, so moving on to our next part, we have our wings with our slats. This looks to be the upper side of the wings. Again, some nice panel line detail. right through there. Some nice raised bolt detail right along the wing root right here. And then we have our areas for our navigation lights, and then on the reverse side or underside we have some nice raised bolt detail all going through there. Very fine detail as well going on, so very nicely done on that. And then on our landing gear wells, I'm hoping that the camera will pick up all the detail that's in there. Some nice bolt detail, raised panels and everything going on there. And then the same thing with the other side. We flip it over. Really the only areas that we're worried about on this part of it is our landing gear doors right here, which are absolutely amazing on that. No issues with those. And also these landing gear doors, again, no issues with those as well. We just have the little nubs that we're going to have to cut off when we're attaching those. So again, very nicely done on all the placement and the molding on this kit. Alright, up next we have a bunch of odds and ends through here with our ailerons, our flaps going on, and our pilot seat right here with our molded in seat belts. For molded in, injection molded seat belts, those do look very nice and very nicely detailed on that. We do have the option of having it with the seat belts molded in, or we also have a empty seat pan as well. Looking at our fuel tanks look good. We have a bunch of cockpit details right through here. And then our tail wheel in the lowered and raised version right there, as you can see, and then a bunch of antennas and all that. And our spinner again also looks very nice as well. Landing gear doors, or landing gear struts, I'm sorry, also look very nice. There is a very small ejector pin mark on right here. They are very shallow, so they should be rather easy to sand out, but they are not really going to be visible once you have the wheel on with that. So that shouldn't be much of an issue. And some nice brake line hoses right there. Alright, moving on to our penultimate sprue. We have our main fuselage halves, our exhaust, and all that going on. Looking at the fuselage, there's not really much for the detail wise. Just some panel lines right through here. We do have some nice raised rivets right there and everything. I mean, there wasn't actually a lot of rivets and everything on this, so you wouldn't see it all clustered with rivets. Luckily, Trumpeter didn't do this kit. But anyways, for the detail on the outside of the kit so far, looks absolutely top notch. We have our cockpit floor and walls right here. Again, some very intricate molding going on through here with all the wires and cabling going on, and even on here all of our switches and everything going on through there. And the same thing with the other side of the fuselage right there. And then we're gonna take a look at our exhaust. So our exhaust, might need to drill those out a little bit because they are not hollowed out. That would be the one downside, or the one aftermarket thing that I might look into getting on this. But you do also have the exhaust shrouds. I don't know, you won't have those covered up, but I think that would be the only aftermarket thing that I would get for this kit so far. From what I can see, are the aftermarket exhausts. Really, that's about as far as I would go on that. So for the inside of the fuselage halves, no detail going on this side, and then we do have a little bit of detail going on right here. But a lot of this is going to be covered up by our actual cockpit walls. We do have a couple of ejector pin nubs to cut off of there on this side, but that's expected with all the detail that is actually molded into this kit right here. So again, very nicely done. The only aftermarket that I can see needed for this kit, and that's just being nitpicky, are are for the exhaust. The exhausts still do look very nice, and if you want to go through and drill out those exhausts, you can do those too. But yeah, so again, very nice. Really excited for this. Alright, so up next we have our clear parts, and this is the last sprue. So we do have two options with the canopy closed right here. I'm not sure on what the difference between the two are, because we also have two front canopies right here, and then we have one open canopy right here. The clear parts are absolutely crystal clear. Might be just a wee bit of distortion on the curved part right here, but I mean it's very minimal, and it's kind of expected with curved plastic injection. But again, those are, I mean, crystal clear. And then on the front sides, again, no real issues with any of that. And then we have our armor plates for our front window right here, or armored glass. Then we have a few other clear parts going on right there. Alright, so that's the Kotare Messerschmitt Bf-109K-4, and the kit, like all of their other kits, is absolutely top notch with the instructions, the decals, the plastic, everything. I couldn't find anything to complain about. Not that I look for things to complain about, but there's really nothing really wrong with this kit. It all looks top notch. The molding, everything, the attention to detail on the decals, on how they did it, again, very nicely done on that. The only thing, like I said, the only thing that I could think possibly aftermarket wise for this would be the exhaust. And maybe, I didn't really look closely at the gun barrels, but maybe the gun barrels as well. But other than that, I mean, that's top. I mean, really nice. Really excited to get it, get into this one. If you have the chance to get it, definitely highly recommend getting it, because you know, from what I've heard, I've yet to build a Kotare model, but from what I've heard, they go together really well as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this inbox review. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell button for notifications of when I post future videos. And until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. You stay frosty, and happy modeling.